DeShawn Foster has a few sleepers on this year's roster that can go a long way to helping the Bruins have an 8-9 win season here in 2025.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast and available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for being an everydayer. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. What we're diving in today, we're going into no Kaden Robinson. He lost his legal battle, so he won't be with UCLA this year. 2, UCLA doesn't even have a real practice field. And why is there this new attitude towards the media, somewhat coming from DeShawn Foster and company potentially? And what we're going to start with, UCLA's sleepers. These guys can have a significant enough impact for UCLA to have a good season in 2025, all right? 8-9 wins would be a good season. If you're going to go crazy and go 10 wins, go there. 11, out of your minds. But it was out of your mind to think that Carson Schlesinger would come out of nowhere as a one-time walk-on and turn into a second-round NFL draft pick, and how the Bruins turned Femi Oladejo also into a second-round draftee by the Tennessee Titans. So who are similar guys, one on offense, one on defense, a couple in special teams, because I think they're kind of a hybrid role, that can make a difference for this year's roster? 1/3 of each of the roster all is coming in this one. So who am I going to start with? For UCLA, as I already touched on with Kaden Robinson not going to be here, more on that the third, Quasi Gilmer is going to be the guy, right? Quasi Gilmer is the guy that should be the breakout star for UCLA receivers. But I'm thinking sleepers. I'm thinking of a guy that maybe isn't even on everybody's radar. A guy that came in the transfer portal. Someone who could stand to benefit, considering you have Kaden Robinson injured. You have the likes of Rico Flores Jr. injured till at least October, I believe. Mikey Matthews apparently sat out of practice today, and Quasi Gilmer sat out of practice. You know who could be getting some reps? Jaedon Wilson, a transfer from Arkansas. I'm not saying this kid's going to be all that. He's 6'3", a redshirt senior from DeSoto, Texas, coming from the SEC, but this is his last shot. You would think a veteran receiver, someone who comes in with this new receiver group, could potentially have a shot. Not that it's been blown up in practice. All the hype is going towards Quasi. You can see it from the practice reports. LA Times put out their list of most important players, and I'll get to the importance of Gilmer wanting to be the Biletnikoff Award winner as a sophomore. But when you have a veteran guy, a guy who, when Gilmer will eventually break out at some point, maybe weeks 1 through 3, then you're going to see a lot of defenses bracket their coverage towards him. Who is going to break out and have big-time catches, third and long conversions, a game-winning touchdown, the game-sealing touchdown? I look at a Jaedon Wilson as potentially a guy who's a veteran dude that has a couple of touchdown receptions in his career, a long of a 65-yard catch a couple years ago at Arkansas, one game played in the last season as a Razorback. Could he come in and benefit from no Kaden Robinson? That's a guy who I'm going deeper. I'm going deep down the list as someone who could break out. You might have a different name. Someone could probably throw out Carter Shaw as a potential name in the receiver room or anywhere else. Or maybe you're thinking, Zach, just go simple with Quasi. Absolutely. But I'm thinking him more as a breakout guy, a sleeper that could make a big play, an unheralded dude who can make some big-time catches. Maybe it's a Jaedon Wilson. I'm going big, and I'm digging a little deeper in this depth chart as to someone who over the course of this season could make a few plays that change UCLA's trajectory from a 5-7 to a 7-5 to an 8-4. And I think Wilson, you go veteran, you go potential leadership, hopefully could be that guy. I'm not sure if that's where it's leaning right now, but that's what could happen for UCLA. Where I'm also leaning on my defensive sleeper is Jon Jon Vaughns, more of a known commodity. The kid out of St. John Bosco High School. He's been with the UCLA program for so long, but he's a two-way star. And the talk was, all right, he plays baseball, he plays football. And now with what DeShawn Foster's been able to talk about with Jon Jon Vaughns is he's been through the shift from coaches. He was taken to Big Ten media days, and at a position of need, someone needs to step up. In 23, we saw Kane Medrano lead the charge. Joining Kane Medrano in 24 was the rise of Carson Schlesinger. But those guys are both gone. And Family's gone. Who are those guys that can step up? It's within your own roster. You don't have to look to the portal. UCLA already did get Isaiah Chisholm, who will probably be the more big-name player in the linebacker room, but you need a running mate. You need a running mate to help bark out the calls. There's a reason why Vaughns was taken to Big Ten Media Days as a leader who's been in that locker room for a very long time out in Westwood. And this is what the super redshirt senior is brought to the table with his career stats. Since 2020 for Jon Jon Vaughns, 2020, he's been around a very, very long time utilizing a super redshirt year. He has a total of 113 tackles, 64 solo, 6.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 picks, and 7 passes defended. No fumbles forced, no fumbles recovered, no blocks of any kinds. So in limited action with some kind of talented players growing in their roles, I wonder what Jon Jon Vaughns can do with a full year of opportunity in a position of need. Like, they need Jon Jon Vaughns to break out. And the hope is with a full offseason, a full football focus, that maybe he could be that breakout. Now, there's a lot to say, he's going to turn to the next quote-unquote, maybe not walk-on, but guy that breaks out and turns into an NFL draft pick. That's a lot of pressure to place on this kid. But for somebody who in 23 on a very good defense actually made 3.5 tackles for loss and had a sack on that season with 25 total tackles. Had a lot of total tackles in 2022 for a team that was pretty good, 53, his season high. And after only playing in 4 games last year, I wonder where UCLA can go with the super senior, right? He's been around a very, very long time. And I think hopefully at this point, you go veteran, you go old, you go strong. He knows what it takes to be a leader in the locker room. And whether it's on the field, off the field, in the locker room, we need UCLA as a whole to have this kid grow and become the young man at this point when you've been almost in a program 6 years, numbers that go back to 2020, early Chip Kelly at that point to now year 2 under DeShawn Foster. You can speak on some things. And hopefully this is his breakout year because UCLA needs it after losing so much talent on the defensive side. You'll point to Chisholm potentially as a breakout star coming from Oregon State. But with Jon Jon Vaughns, there's maybe something that has been untapped. And if that is reached this year, something special. Now I'm going to go special teams. Recently, we've seen UCLA struggle in the kicking game. I think Mateen Bagani is cool, and that's been a nice player to fill the void in the kicking game after he transferred from Cal. You got Will Carroll, who came from Tulane, that should hopefully settle down the punting spot, even though UCLA's punter was getting raving reviews from the LSU fans last year. Those are 2 spots that are mostly settled from a starting standpoint. Into 2025, what I'm focusing on is the return game. The return game. It's been a while since UCLA had some fun in the return game. If you went to some stats about the punt return when it comes to yards per return or something, because Logan Loya returned a couple with some net positive yardage and fair caught almost all of them, they technically had some decent punt return stats if you got really into the weeds about where they ranked across the country because they returned 1 punt for like 10 yards once in the last few years. The Bruins need some breakout opportunities. They need to flip the field. And while Nico in this offense is hopefully going to be special in 2025 with a new offensive coordinator, you need some game-changing, game-breaking, crowd-exciting plays, ones that get the crowd into it. Yes, seeing a bomb from Nico every 5, plays or something, every few moments in the 4, whatever it might be, a game-winning drive, that's awesome. Whether it's something on the offense or maybe a defensive pick 6. But the kick return game that has flipped the field or the pick or the punt return, it's just not been there. So I'm looking at Mikey Matthews from a punt return specialty, forgetting his wide receiver exploits. We're talking punt return. And then we're talking Roderick Pleasant as a kick returner. Those 2 combined in the return game can hopefully lead to something different. You have Pleasant, who could come in with that game-changing speed. I'm not entirely sure what that means for UCLA when it comes to game-changing speed going down the field in the return, or if they can even get much more out of the punt return game. But they can. That can be lethal and can just change games in times where maybe the offense is not clicking. Maybe you need that game-changing play at Ohio State or versus Penn State where they're like, how do we let that happen? But that's how you win games and cause upsets. That's what UCLA needs. So between Jon Jon Vaughns, Jaedon Wilson, a Mikey Matthews and Roderick Pleasant combination in the return game, Those are things to look out for things that could change games in subtle ways over the 12-game regular season. For UCLA to go from 5-7 to a 7-win, 8-win team, to utilize the entire depth of their roster to get wins. It might not happen versus Utah, but over the course of the year, those guys need to make some plays and could break out in small moments. Next, we're going to talk about Spalding Field in the practice facility. Or are they playing at Drake? What are they doing? And what is this attitude showcased towards the lack of media access towards practice and players? What? All that next on Locked On UCLA. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether they're 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. Look at myself. I'm one of those fools. And that's why Monarch Money, its all-in-one personal finance tool, brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop, on your phone. And it's like, wait a minute. For me, who is so illiterate when it comes to the financial side of things, that's where Monarch Money does the heavy lifting for you, for me, and I can link all my accounts and all your accounts. You can link them in minutes. So see the clear data, visuals, get smart categorization of spending, and finally feel in control of your money. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this, who's handling what. No. Put it together. See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. That's openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. So here we are. The season is, at this point in my recording, probably about a week and a half away. All right, depending on when you're watching this. 10, 9, 8, whatever you're watching this, that's when this season is. All right, we're very close. The countdown, this super long wait from the national championship game has finally got us to now week 1. Well, leading into week 0 for some, but for us UCLA fans, week 1 of the college football season. Now the question is, why did UCLA go to Costa Mesa to practice? Why did they not even practice at their own practice field, if you will, at UCLA right now, and they're leading into the final stages of their week 1 preparations? It's because the Bruins are undergoing a full overhaul of the Spalding Field facility, right? A full 100-yard field, more grass, some slightly smaller turf fields on the side to prepare to play in the Rose Bowl. Now, there is a fun event coming up for UCLA, open practice, if you will, more money to spend if you want to get more up close in, personal access to watching the practice and seeing the players. I believe $100 per person is what they're going for if you're going to a more exclusive access, but it's for free in the Rose Bowl to go see some of the new pieces, put on UCLA uniforms, and for the Bruins to actually touch the field at the Rose Bowl. Sounds like a great thing. I'm assuming everybody, when it comes to their home stadiums, does this before week 1, especially for the Bruins, who play in an off-campus stadium. Arguably, if not the best, one of the best in college football, in the Rose Bowl. What the question is, why would they break grounds on a practice field during the part of the year where you need to use it the most, the time where practice is the most vital? You're not beaten up. You're not wasting it. You're conditioning. You're practicing. You're preparing. You're going through all the walkthroughs, right? That's where there's going to be a lot of unrest in ways where UCLA sits like, why is this practice field? And according to DeShawn Foster, talked to the media, his very short media availability, said it's actually not going to be ready possibly to the end of September. And when do we believe those construction updates? It could be done soon. It could not be. And it's not that they're not moving quick enough, which is possibly the case. Why would they do this so close to the season? You could blame the athletic department. You could say, hey, when did they get this idea? or this is the opportune time they can do it now that the spring quarter or the summer quarter, is done. Because as much as you go to fall, you go to winter, you go to spring quarter, summer quarter just ended, and they're not going to start school until late September. All right. There's still another few weeks before students actually come on campus and they're even worried about classes. So that's the joy of this. So the Bruins could use the rec fields. I think there's Drake Stadium, as many have said, should be a potential home for UCLA football games. It's not really conducive for doing that. But right now, it looks like that is where UCLA is preparing to practice and play and how they look like during practice. Like, how do you do that? That just, the oversight, the planning, that this makes no sense. And I know sometimes when you're overhauling, like say what UCLA might have to do with the baseball stadium, USC had to do with their baseball stadium, other places like UCLA when they renovated Paul Pavilion, sometimes you're just displaced. But it feels like when you're trying to move the program forward, when you're trying to take this program in the step in the right direction, this feels like Chip Kelly-esque. I'm not sure that, you can blame this on him necessarily. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. But like, it just seems like we're not going in the right direction in terms of, hey, why are we blowing up, destroying our practice field to get it ready for by the time we get there, week 5 of the 2025 season? Like, what are we doing? Now, there's smarter people that have more information and probably better insight than I when it comes to logistics, finances, and how that works. So there's probably an explanation. Doesn't mean it's good or bad, but there's an explanation. The other big question mark is you go watch the latest media availability for DeShawn Foster. You're not going to see players. You're going to see a very short 7-minute short answer DeShawn Foster. There's a new attitude. And it seems like it's not exactly souring. We're not at that point yet. He's not blaming, but there is seemingly some frustration when you go from 8 minutes of stretching, the quote, to go watch a practice out of, go from instead of LA all the way to Costa Mesa, like very different. They saw 8 minutes of stretching in fall camp versus now you don't get to see any practice. And DeShawn Foster was quoted saying, yeah, you guys come to practice and film it and put it on the internet. Interesting. And it's like, yeah, now we don't get to talk to players for human interest stories in some cases. And it's like, wait, what's going on here? The marketing purpose, it's very interesting. And I'm not really going to dive into that side of things about the marketing and all that. But it is clear that there's a different edge to DeShawn Foster. It's not with more length. It's not with more irritability necessarily in his voice. But you can tell. If you go watch the UCLA practice report video, go to the UCLA Athletics YouTube page. Go watch their link on the UCLA football page. And there's a different attitude. There's a different swagger. There's like, we're coming in here to do some business. We want to win, so you can't watch our practice. We're going to find out. And we're going to learn very quickly if they're afraid and they're going to suck and we're just all waiting for something to explode in the wrong direction, or that this was genius and DeShawn Foster's like, the shucks we saw year 1 is the, we are going to get some haters. Now, apparently it went from we're getting Nico, and it's been this slow build to like, we don't give a bleep. That's what they're saying right now to everybody trying to cover the practice, what they're saying to people who want to go watch football practice. You could debate about the interest of watching a football practice for 3 hours and everything, right? But he doesn't want people to see the offense. He doesn't want to see people move. We get the source report from CBS Sports that Nico's special, but it's from source to source to source, and nobody's going to watch it. And if you just go watch the quick 7 minutes, it's a little different with the way DeShawn Foster's answering questions. And you knew as soon as he walked up to the podium with no players available, with limited access, if nothing to watch from practice, that there is a little tension there. And it's kind of interesting to see how that plays out. There's a different attitude. That same DeShawn Foster, that was, I don't know what to say during the press conference in the Big Ten year 1, came in with a clear objective in year 2. Wrote his speech, was funny, humorous, was calculated. And this is very calculated, knowing he's going to make some enemies. Calculated to go get Nico. Calculated to go get players who would take discounts to come to UCLA in the transfer portal, maybe in high school recruiting, to change things up, to ruffle feathers when they had a starting quarterback who's now been named the starter at Tennessee and Joey Aguilar, and say, hey, we're going to bring in somebody we think is better than you, even though we've already committed for a whole 5 to 6 months that you're going to be our guy. Like, there's a different arrogance right now. And sometimes that's what it takes to win. Now, you could argue about the blue bloods and college football and everything, but there's a different level of arrogance coming from DeShawn Foster and company with the way that these things are going. And whether you're interested in watching every second of the players run into and play tackle and have tackle drills, or what they're working on if they're just stretch, more power to you. But there is something different. A little cagier, a little firmer, like, I know what I'm doing this year too, let's roll. And hopefully that turns into wins and losses. Or it's going to be very different from how Mick Cronin runs his program. It's like, all right, come watch. I'm going to be myself. And UCLA is like, watch in a couple weeks, and we're going to show the world how special we are. And that better be the case. Otherwise, this arrogance is going to rub everybody the wrong way. This is a little different from the DeShawn Foster we'd seen previously. And hopefully, the way he's been talking, the actions speak louder than the words. And the actions are saying, just wait and find out. Well, we're going to find out real soon. But what we did find out about was Kaden Robinson. He's no longer going to play at UCLA. Why that sucks, and why this will be a Quasi Gilmer breakout season next on Locked On UCLA. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. Whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the game. And PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. It puts members first, so withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Download PrizePicks apps today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, run your game. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Take your flyer, underrated pick, Ashton Jeanty. Hey, let's go. Check out that Raiders running back and visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bet now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. So now at this point, you've probably seen the news, and if you haven't heard of it, we're going to tell you once again. You have Kaden Robinson, DJ Wingfield for USC, and then I think another San Diego State linebacker of sorts, who were denied their 5th year of eligibility through the court proceedings, hoping to get the Diego Pavia ruling that, hey, with the JUCO and where your career started and how it's played out, you can make more money in NIL, and that being withheld that opportunity, you're actually violating some antitrust laws. In the end, Kaden Robinson did not get that eligibility accepted, approved, whatever you want to call it. It was denied their injunctive relief, so they cannot play in 2025. DeShawn Foster was asked about it at practice, and he didn't seem too positive about it, even though he was positive a few weeks ago, and apparently how it similarly played out to Diego Pavia's injunction, the now Vanderbilt quarterback who beat Alabama, that has completely changed college football, at least for the current year and the present. Right now, UCLA was apparently going to get a $450,000 package to Kaden Robinson. That's from the LA Times. And you're like, man, that's a lot of money UCLA is going to give to a big-time playmaking receiver, which means that with Kaden Robinson not playing, this is the opportunity for UCLA to break out. So I started this episode talking about sleepers, and I went with Jaedon Wilson as a sleeper, somebody who's going to help the team. Potentially, you could have gone Carter Shaw. You might lean Mikey Matthews. I did that in a different area. This is where you need a playmaker. Kaden Robinson was supposed to be the replacement for a J. Michael Sturdivant. And with Rico Flores hurts, with no Kaden Robinson, who, mind you, was still coming off an injury to UCLA. So there's no guarantees he would have been ready to go. DeShawn Foster mentioned his ACL, so he wasn't able to go participate in Pro Day. He thought he could go make some cash, play at UCLA, rehabilitate, put up some numbers and some tape that proved he was healthy, and maybe make the jump to the NFL in 2026. That's not going to happen for him. So that sucks. But it shows that the Bruins are going to go give him almost $500,000 in NIL opportunities, that the Bruins are somewhat fitting the bill in their NIL compensation. How they can go with revenue sharing is now the future of what that's going to look like to get players to UCLA from, a financial aspect beyond just scholarships and reducing the money it costs to come to UCLA. To make up for the lack of receptions, touchdowns, this is where Quasi Gilmer comes in. Quasi Gilmer is somebody who in his true freshman campaign had a total of just a little over 300 yards receiving. He had 2 touchdowns, and his highest total was 88 yards in one game. So 345 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 31 receptions in this year with one rush at Washington. So his touchdown came at Washington. His touchdown came against Nebraska, his truly breakout game where he had 3 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown. The moment where we got introduced to Quasi was his first career reception at LSU when it was clear that Rico was hurt and the Bruins needed some more reinforcements in the receiver position. Quasi made a couple of plays, 2 receptions for 61 yards out in Baton Rouge. Each play almost about, 30 and a half yards per play. And he talks like he did to the media that he wants the Biletnikoff Award as a sophomore. He's talking big game. He had a big, funny, huge recruitment commitment video to get to UCLA. So he's a little bit about wanting the spotlight. I'm not going to say that's positive or negative, but he wants the smoke. All right, that's the best way to put it. And if you want a breakout star to make the Robinson injunction denied motion, that doesn't matter. This is where Quasi Gilmer comes in. Now, 6'2", coming into his true sophomore year out of Sierra Canyon. Hey, this is a guy that could go make some plays, and I can't wait to see how that goes. And the reports out of practice were in the limited viewing sessions, Nico and Quasi have been that 1A, 1B, that they have been the connection that has been thriving at practice. Now, I wait to see how it comes out, and why I didn't have him as my sleeper is because I have bigger expectations for Quasi Gilmer. Now, across the country, you could say, yes, Gilmer will be that sleeper, the guy that nobody sees, but with no Rico Flores, with no clear-cut number 1, I know Mikey Matthews comes in a little bit, with no Kaden Robinson, you lost your Logan Loya, you lost your J. Michael Sturdivant, they lost their leading receiving tight end, and I know Hudson Habermill is supposed to come back and hopefully have a leading role in that category. Somebody's got to step up and be the man. Be the man in the receiving room as the leader in on-field statistics and goes and makes plays. And I think Quasi can do that. And if all the reports are true, if they surface into the regular season and he still has that great connection with Nico Iamaleava, and yet we don't get to watch it, see it at practice, and DeShawn Foster's like, yeah, we're not going to let you see that, then UCLA, they'll be better off for it if this true sophomore can step up. For Robinson, though, it sucks that his career ends. But at some point, the NCAA in college athletics, they're either going to give you 5 years of eligibility or we're going to go back to 4, and we've got to centralize what it takes to be a college athlete. I know they can make money, but is college athletics turning into an internship before you go officially pro? Or are we semi-pro? Is it professional, but you still have to be academic? Or is this an internship-based thing? And I wonder if we can somehow turn college athletics into a full paid internship, if you will. If we change that language, and then maybe that's like you're supposed to be a college student, and you're only supposed to be here 1 to 2 years. And just because you can make $1 million, you kind of got to go pro at some point, right? Like, when are you too good in your 3 to 4 years before you have to go pro? Like, I wonder what that's going to look like in the future. That's a whole nother discussion, but I think the Bruins have the pieces to make up for the loss of Robinson. He hasn't been with the Bruins fully practicing as a number 1 option. The UCLA Bruins knew that, hey, this wouldn't necessarily be something that could happen. It could happen, but it's not that it should happen, and it ended up not. So we're not like, oh, this just happened. It's been a long build. This was a maybe, and it became a maybe, not actually a no. So I'm glad that it wasn't played out like this was most likely going to happen. They've learned for a while. They've practiced without it. They've gotten the new quarterback. They have the new OC. They made their move. They swung big, but unfortunately, that injunction that saved Diego Pavia's super senior season isn't going to do so for UCLA's Kaden Robinson, who would have gotten a big chunk of change as a tier 1 receiver for the Bruins out of the portal. That sucks. And I think Quasi Gilmer is set for a breakout, more than just a sleeper's role. The Bruins need somebody to transform into the number one, and that's where I hope Quasi Gilmer, as a true sophomore, can do just that. Next, we're going to talk all sorts of fun UCLA football, basketball, everything, and there'll be Big Ten squad coming up on this channel. I highly encourage you to watch the Big Ten season preview with that as well. In the meantime, hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.